It's wonderful to be part of this setup today and the launch here, and connected with leaders and founders and from the VC ecosystem. Right. I personally know Shridhar and Anand and Ankita. Well, would like take this quick introduction from their end on what they're building and what they have already built, and then scaling it up. Starting with Anand, if you can quickly introduce Skillate to the people here. Of course, SAP knows you, but outside of SAP also, right?
Thanks, Anand. I'm Anand, co-founder and chief business officer at Skillate. We are a recruitment tech platform which streamlines the recruitment process by sitting on top of platforms like SuccessFactors, and have joint customers with names like Coca-Cola, Ola Cabs, Badju's, Marico, UPL, to name a few. Passing it on to next.
Yeah, Shridhar, if you could introduce. I'm just going by screen. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Shridhar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Senseforth.ai. We automate conversations between people and organizations, especially large organizations around the globe. We have built a conversational AI platform, which is ranked number 6 on the global machine reading comprehension leaderboard. That's the brief intro.
Thanks, Shridhar and Ankita.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ankita Vashistha. I've been in the PE and VC space and the entrepreneurship space for the past 15 years. I currently run one of the leading and the first venture funds to invest in early stage women-led and focused technology-enabled companies, Saha Fund and StronHer Ventures.
Thanks. Wonderful, right? So when we thought we should speak to founders and from VC ecosystem today, obviously, right, the context was depending on what you're reading on LinkedIn or whom you're following, either the recession is already there or it's going to come, or it's like it will never come to India. Okay, India is completely insulated. I mean, these are the mixed signals for the last 3-4 months coming across, right? But yeah, all of us will agree to a point that we are in a different circumstance compared to last year and 2020, how it was. Okay, right? And all we not wanted is a war after the pandemic, but which also eventually happened. Okay, right? So on that note, would like to pick all of your inputs today on bit on the challenges as well as how the opportunities we are looking at from each perspective, and then specifically on the SaaS ecosystem, right? So I would like to start with Ankita. Obviously, with the new initiative around, you have been meeting founders, be it in person. I hope you're meeting in person more compared to virtually last year. I would like to pick your thoughts on what are the challenges today you are hearing from the founders. Of course, I believe you're also meeting a lot of early stage founders as well, right?
Yes.
So if you could share some of the challenges that you're hearing from founders in your one-on-one calls, as well as specifically from the SaaS domain. Okay, right?
Yeah, sure. Of course, we interact with a lot of early stage founders, and we also recently launched our first female founders focused accelerator program. So we've been having a lot of kind of webinars, events, in person, kind of workshops. And the idea for that was just to really interact and get to know these founders. So maybe I'll just talk about a few key things, and also from the perspective of a SaaS company as well, right? I think one of the recurring issues or kind of obstacles I see founders facing in early stage founders is hiring. I think hiring is something which and the fact that we have remote teams, of course, I think it's been a blessing, and in the sense that it has accelerated where you can kind of hire talent from, but it's also leveled the playing field as well in some sense, right? So I think it's become very hard to hire and retain talent, right? And I'm sure Anand and Shridhar can also kind of comment on that as well. But I think that's what we've seen. How to kind of be able to build out a team remotely. So also the fact that now you have hybrid teams, right? Of course, big enterprises have great infrastructure, processes, culture, all kind of defined and in place, to really take those hybrid teams forward efficiently. But I think for early stage founders, that is something that they've had to learn and invest money in, right? And be able to kind of build their, as an early stage founder, they're building out everything, but at the same time having to build out this new culture and team, etc. Right? So I think that has kind of been an issue in that sense, where I think and even from the startups that have applied to Accelerator or look for funding, one of the most common questions is that, will you be able to help us with hiring as well, right? So I think that's something that we see. From a SaaS perspective, also, I think the fact is that I think there's so many. I mean, I think for any company out there or for any startup, the competition is a lot, right? In today's world, there is so many people building out there. So I think being a key differentiator is very important in that sense, right? And so I think from a SaaS product perspective, how do you really penetrate the market and differentiate yourself, right? And also, you can be building something really amazing as a product leader, as a technology company, but I think how to monetize that is also something which early stage founders really need help in, right? And the fact that as say a B2B SaaS founder, you of course are an early stage innovative company, but in the end you're dealing with these big enterprises, right? So how do you build those relationships, enter those relationships, close those sales cycles? I think that's something that definitely early stage founders are looking for help in. I've seen amazing founders, amazing products, and they have great customers, SMBs in India, and they're all looking to see how now they can kind of enter into the US markets, right? Or the, kind of your US and European markets. So I think that kind of help from, people like yourself or from, strategic VCs or other big enablers really can help, these founders. And of course, coming to funding, I think funding, and we've all heard of this great term, funding winter. I think that's something that everyone's been talking about. I used to joke and say that, of course, before all this hit, that anyone with a pitch deck in the past few months got funded, right? Especially in India and the whole B2C space, and I think in the US and the B2B side, it was a great funding environment. I think what's happened, of course, fast forward is the investors are now looking at unit economics and looking at a clear sight to profitability, right? No longer will they invest in very long growth cycles and no sight of profitability. I don't think it's acceptable also in that sense anymore. So I think, of course, those things have changed. I also definitely feel as someone who's as a strategic investor, that's a more sustainable way of anyway building out your company, right? So I think a lot of that has come into place and a lot of importance has been given to that. Also, just from an early stage perspective, though, I think there is enough money out there, dry powder out there for great companies always, right? So good companies will always raise money, especially in the early stage ecosystem. I think there is a lot of funding available, so that's good news. I know, of course, things might be delayed at a more later stage funding cycle, but early stage is still quite robust and positive. But of course, the questions and the expectations are much more diligent, much more thorough in that sense, right? So I think founders need to be ready for that. And anyway, I think as a good founder with a clear differentiator, you anyway need to have all those things in check. So I think that's what I've seen in the ecosystem so far.
Great points. I think some of the founders over here who are starting up would have got the answers clearly also, right? You also gave me quick direct points to ask Shridhar and then followed by Anand. Selling monetization at the early stage and selling globally as a SaaS company. And Shridhar, moving to you, Senseforth, as most of us know, has a global customer base, okay, right? And how do you put the market reactions in terms of the recent events, right? Starting from March onwards, it has been 6 months now. What is happening in terms of macro? If you could spill out how the market reactions are overall, right? From SaaS business, selling from India, obviously, right? A little bit on those.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's two schools of thought, and some people saying that we're already in recession from a macroeconomics point of view, and some people saying it's not there yet. But I think people who are saying that we are already facing recession, they're I think looking at data from a unidimensional point of view. They're looking at probably GDP, and if you look at the US GDP, in the first quarter it was about it fell by 1.6%, and then second quarter about 0.9%, under 1%. Yeah. So that is the data that everybody's referring to, actually. But then if you look at the other vectors, for example, the job market, it is still robust, right? And that means a lot of economic activity is going on. And the second data point that we need to look at is also the stock market. And I think stock market in the US had the best month probably in the last 2 years, since 2020, right? So there are clear indications that US actually didn't fall into recession as yet. But then, but what happens in points of reference of such kind is that people get cautious, and that's a good thing, right? And from a B2B play perspective, my experience is that automation players generally don't get impacted because automation is the only weapon that gives large enterprises the ability to compete in global markets, right? So as long as you focus on automation, and I think, and of course, I'll talk about the second point. I think you're in the safe zone, in my view. Now, the second point is, especially at Senseforth, what we try and do is the value creation triad is what we look at. One is there are three aspects to it. One is great product experience, and the second one is great talent with exceptional people, right? So that's the second part of the triad, and the third one is being ahead of the curve in technology innovation. So these are the three points points in the triad, and if we focus on that, I think you generally don't go wrong, right? So that is what we do, and even for people who are saying it's recession is already there, either last quarter or this quarter, if you look at historic data from 1950s onwards, every recession, I mean, if you look at the average recession, it never lasted more than 2 to 3 quarters, right? So if somebody is saying that last quarter it is there, now I think next quarter we should be getting out of it. So we should be safe there.
Great, thanks, Shridhar. That would help us. Most of us to understand how people are seeing it, right? There are two lenses, obviously, right? And I think both Ankita and you yourself highlighted on the talent part, and that eventually brings me to Anand, obviously, right? Anand, you have been working with high growth companies, large MNCs on the talent, reimagining the talent landscape, everything, right? And on common term, all we use is Great Resignation last year, and now we are speaking about funding winter or recession, right? How do you see the effects, or is there a rippling effects around it, or it's like job market is robust, like Shridhar said, right?
Right. So I think I'll tell and combine two aspects. One, what we see on a daily basis from our 17 plus unicorn customers out of 105 that India has. We are very proud of being the category leader in what we do. And the second is definitely little brain and experience what I have, right? So I'll combine this two and accordingly try to give an answer. So 2020, I think all of a sudden, pandemic, COVID-19, all of this has happened. For the entire world, it was complete new. Nobody was knowing what is going to happen. A lot of people fired, a lot of people got a pay cut from the large corporates, etc. And all of that has definitely happened, right? People who have not done pay cut was having a proud moment from the leadership of the CXO level that we have not done that, something of that sort. Nobody was having a clue for first 6 months what is going to happen. All of a sudden, all the tech companies have started going up. And investors became so bullish that people are just locked in on the computer and mobile. Let's just scale up this business as much as we can. And then a typical economics example came, the demand supply fact. In 2021, everybody is having enough money to do anything and everything that you want. Now, was the economy mature enough to handle that piece of money? Was the talent available for the first time? Being every company is a product company and everybody is hiring 50 and 100 product managers to engineering managers, whatnot. I'll give a couple of stats from our customers, from whatever we hear from the industry. So one of our customers said, for the first time, I've increased a VP salary to a CR in my 7 to 8 years of startup journey, but still I'm not able to hire. Some other company is like, I've offered a guy of 1 CR, 1.1 CR to 2.2 CR, but still I'm not sure whether the person is going to join. At the same time, what a company looks out from the talent. They looks out what kind of ROI we are going to get from that talent, from that person, with the kind of CTC that we are offering. If I just want to multiply the math, not just in sales role, but in every possible function. If right, otherwise there is no limit as such. An engineering manager, if you are getting 50 lakh to a CR, can be given 5 CR. But the point is how we can justify the math. There was no limit. It's complete insane. Everybody has been given 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, and we know the examples of SoftBank and Tiger, when everybody was having enough money. And the moment you have money, you have to grow at any cost, no matter what. So the great thing that has happened is now everybody has come to a control that yes, we have to take a pause. We have to take a pause and understand what is happening. What actually makes sense. I know a person who has raised some really $100 million from SoftBank. They said that it's not that I don't have money. I have money to procure talent, to have talent in my company. But the point is the math should work somewhere, because I'm month on month just burning, let's say, $1 million or $1.5 million, even if I have 100 million in my account, because my basic math is not working. And if I'm giving this kind of crazy salary, I'm not sure how I'm justifying my internal people who are there with me from last many years. That has stopped after this winter, which everybody is aware of, wherein now we are talking about basics, now we are talking about profitability, now we are talking about business for the first time, rather than cost at any growth. That's my learning, what I have with my customers and with the entire ecosystem.
Thanks, Anand. Just a quick second question on that. Do you think this rationale has come irrespective of VC on the board or not? Let's say, and probably who have, let's say, a bootstrap company as well, right? Because it's what's happening around us, okay, right? So do you think from an ecosystem point of view, the rationale has hit everybody, or it's only where there is a paycheck?
It's on everybody. It's on everybody. Definitely it's limited to tech talent much, much more than any other function. And in tech talent, if you want to break down into, it will be dev, design, and product people, right? We can further break down, which I just don't want to. But yes, it's limited to them and much more applied to product companies, because that have been heavily funded. And now imagine a small startup who is just trying to be bootstrapped or have not been able to raise money significantly, but at the same time build a great product, right? So that is first category. Second category is definitely the large services company ecosystem. Imagine Accenture, 4 lakh employees as companies having a churn of 40% in a year. We are talking about a churn of 1,60,000 people in a year. No company can hire of the scale that we are talking about. And obviously, we are not creating people. We are transferring people from a place A to a place B.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously, the void will happen from place A, place B, place C, whatnot. So I think we have seen all that challenges and all that hiccups what we have seen.
Understood. Going back to Shridhar with respect to talent and then connecting the dots with we are building from India for global. Okay, right. Of course, talent being the, you also mentioned about great talent experience along with that, right? So could you throw some example in terms of how, as a SaaS company founder, you could go about managing the talent in your enterprises, right? For people who are building today. And then probably I'll pick Ankita, because we also highlighted the talent as an issue, as a right, burning issue for people today. So yeah, Shridhar, starting with you, in terms of managing talent, building for global from India. Right.
Yeah. I think, we have to look at the big picture. And if you look at the first wave of Indian tech entrepreneurship, I think, our country was able to build really great companies, the traditional Indian IT companies, especially the SIs, right? And I think that's, they're expected to, their revenue put together from especially Indian IT services companies is expected to touch about $227 billion this year, right? And that's a phenomenal success, but that is the first wave, right? And then there is a massive amount of talent required, and there is, they became the talent magnets, and the entire education system and policies, everything had to work together to make that happen, right? And of course, many of these large SIs built their own training ecosystems, almost the size of the large US universities, right? And that was the first wave. The second wave saw Indian companies building for India, right? Especially the consumer tech companies, and that's a phenomenal success too. I think it's a great ride, and there too there's a massive talent required, not just the tech, but all the other functions as well, right? People on the street to everywhere. So there is enormous amount of pressure, but then also helped economy bolster further, right? So that's the second wave that happened. I think the third wave that we are just witnessing right now, or at the nascent stage of that revolution, is Indian companies building for global markets from a product standpoint. Right, so that is the third wave, and that's, I think we are just there. A lot of companies are trying, and that's because here, if you look at the ecosystem here, the talent is available. The tech talent is available. Investments are plenty, and there are lots of VCs who are willing to fund great ideas and of course sustain it through, right? Technology infrastructure is phenomenal in India right now, and that's the combination. I think all these factors put together, I think it's just the right time for great product companies to emerge out of India. I think the next wave of really big global tech companies would come out of India because all the factors are in favor, right? But there are a couple of things that we don't get it yet, and I think most of the companies falter on three things. One is building a great product experience. I think a lot of tech companies still try to sort of build very clunky, the products which are not usable at all, and I think that is the talent there is not plenty, and we need to make investments and build that talent as well. The second thing is, of course, understanding the brand or disseminating the brand, or building great marketing organizations. That's also is very weak for Indian tech companies, product companies trying to expand in global markets. So I think we need to get these things right. I think then we have all the factors going for us to create great companies out of India for the global market.
Nice. I've made a note. I think that's clear. And I think there were a lot of thoughts around this when we completed 75 years recently, right? And then what the road looks for next phase. Ankita, I have kind of two questions in two parts coming to you, right? One, we are speaking at length about talent, and then, right, you have seen as a problem. So if you could specifically help how you are helping founders in terms of building the talent pipeline for their companies. And second, from a VC standpoint, and you are being focusing on women entrepreneurs as well, how you are taking, other than capital, what are the other things today you are focusing for startup founders? Okay, it's not only about capital, and we know how VCs are today supporting. So if you could touch briefly on these two, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So we, have always been actually going beyond capital, right? And hiring is something which, like I said, I think it's every startup founder or young team is looking to see how to build out their team, right? So it just so happens that we have a few companies within our portfolio also that are in the talent staffing solution space. But we have partnerships, very strategic partnerships with recruitment firms, with talent staffing firms on the requirements which are required, right? Also, what we've also done is a lot of these big staffing solutions firms also take care of your entire payroll and compliance as well, right? Now that so many teams are, of course, hybrid and remote as well. We also urge our startups that in the initial days, of course, other than your leadership or kind of senior management talent, the other kind of functions can be you can use a third party to kind of take care of that aspect. So it takes away all those administrative issues and this and that, right? So I think that's what we're doing. What we also do is we work very closely with the kind of universities and engineering schools as well, right? To connect them for hiring drives for our startups, right? And there's some great universities out there. Yes, we're based in Bangalore, but also in like tier 2 cities that have great kind of finishing programs or labs, etc., where you can interact with them. The startups come, they get to interact, do a pilot together, etc. Right. So there are a lot of great people that can be recruited from the entrepreneurial cells and innovation labs as well. So we are doing all that within the fund and accelerator as well.
That is interesting because it
yeah.
solves HR for an early stage company, because when you take up that role, interacting with universities and bringing talent directly from there.
Yeah. So it's been really interesting because, we've always had the fund. Ever since we launched this accelerator, we've had so many good partnerships coming out from different stakeholders in the ecosystem and just been able to connect the dots. So a lot of the entrepreneurial students also are looking to work in an early stage startup which they can get into, right? So I think we've been able to kind of connect the dots there, and it's been really interesting to see that partnership really help out as well. Of course, we also come from a kind of a legacy business where we have great global partnerships and networks, and like Shridhar said, I think India has great coding tech talent. But a lot of people want to hire, by the way, from the US. All the engineering teams are here based in India. But for example, I know a lot of startups that are working with designers in Eastern Europe, or maybe someone even in LATAM for UI UX, right? So definitely there are certain areas where I think India still needs to kind of create more of that talent, mostly in design, UI UX, user experience, product experience, right? So things like that. Now, coming to your second question, I think you were asking about how we work closely with founders and can add value beyond capital, right? Yeah. So as I was saying, I think we've always gone beyond capital and really trying to see how the founder and the startup can, of course, kind of focus on their core business and how we can add value to that. I think in today's ecosystem, money is there, to be honest, for a great founder. So I think founders are also looking to see what VCs can add value or what a strategic investor can add value, right? And I think the two main things, of course, is the fact that if it's a B2B focused company, that you're able to get them their first or second client, right? And of course, or if it's B2C, of course, we're able to get them their first set of customers, or at least take them to that level of getting their first set of customers and paying clients. I think that's very important. And of course, on the capital side, I think it's important to be able to show them the direction to scale and to the next round of funding. I think that's really important as an investor to take on that responsibility of showing the founder where to go, what metrics to hit, what to demonstrate, what do you have to project and tell. So many times we meet such great technical founders, but they might not necessarily know how to kind of sell the story or explain what their product is. So I think a lot of guidance, investor intelligence, storytelling, etc. All that is what we kind of do in terms of helping the founder really shape up their idea, their go-to market, their product market fit, all those things. And I think what's really important is for the investor, of course, I think in today's market, nobody can work in silos, right? So I think it's really important that we take on the responsibility of bringing in different stakeholders, right? Like an SAP, like a academy, mentors, advisors, etc., right? And be able to bring relevant skill set to really bring value again to our investment and founder. Right. So I think, even earlier in the panel, I think Marri and Sindhu were mentioning this whole co-creation, co-innovation, right? And I think that happens in partnership with so many stakeholders, being present and really amplifying the effort. And I think, and I think as investors, or anyone, we should open up our networks and really see from where we can pitch in from.
I agree on that. I think in the last 5 years, open innovation as a concept between corporate startups and investors have come a long way. I have a few questions, but I'm going to ask one each so that in the interest of time. Okay, right. So Anand, specific to you would be, can you give me one or two best practices in terms of navigating a large enterprise sales deals as a startup founder?
So I think sales, I'll say there's no rule book as such. What we are, you have to have a very strong top of the funnel and aggression in the entire process to get there. If you don't have the top of the, so I'll give an example. I think we all three founders, while we have started this journey, we hardly understood the meaning of top of the funnel. We hardly understood the meaning of MQL or SQL or ironically a PO, right? But we understood all of that and learned all of that during this journey. So we have never meant what tofu means, right? So somebody, the college senior of one of my partner helped us understand what does the tofu mean. So that piece is very, very important, how strong your top of the funnel is. And post that, obviously the sales cycle will be long if you're thinking from an enterprise standpoint. I believe one of the mistakes that we do as early stage founders which we have to be cautious, is something that I'm sharing my learning is, we just say yes to all the customer requests that comes up very often in the early days. I'm not saying as a mature product. And because you have to get one of those customers, I'll tell you one of the example. So out of Tata, Birla, Adani, I'll just not take the name. One of the conglomerate, we have got the opportunity to work with them in 2018. And they've shortlisted 3 vendors, LinkedIn, IBM, and Skillate. We were in the air that can we even win this deal no matter what is the product or the service that they're looking out for. Obviously, it was a product, but it was a highly custom solution made for that conglomerate. Yes, we got the money, we got the logo, but it was really, really difficult to develop because it was not our expertise and different than the product line that we have, and we have never been able to scale up. So, and interestingly, 4 years down the line, the same Spock left and joined large unicorn of the country. And the person is like, can you do it again for me with whatever cost, right? Now I remember you have taken very less amount at that point of time. We can pay you even 5 times. But today we are in a situation that we are saying no. And the guy was surprised. Why you are saying this today? I've already committed internally that you guys are phenomenal. You guys will be able to do that. We have taken judicious call not to say no to that customer. So I think this is very, very important how you are saying no. But saying no, a lot of times during sales becomes tough, right? So I think people will take it on the ego that how you, and I think in India, it's very, very important. So either you directly, completely 100% focus on US so that, yes, it's 100% on the product. And if you are doing it, the first 5 validation from India, make sure that you understand the importance of saying yes and no at the same time to win the customer. So this is my learning. And yes, you have learned in the journey, but it's better if you learn it beforehand, as early as possible in the career, in the journey.
Thanks. Thanks. Shridhar, a question to you would be how do you put the road ahead for India? I know you already spoke about where we need to address for India SaaS. Okay, right? What do you see? Okay, right. For the next probably decade and 2 decades.
I think there are, clearly, as I was also referring earlier, innovation goes without saying, right? That's the number one. And it's not just about innovation on one facet of the SaaS company, but every aspect. It spans across the product innovation, technology innovation, customer experience innovation, marketing innovation, sales innovation. Across the board, I think we have to embrace innovation, understand what the market needs, and then go after it. For example, when people are going and selling, they try to pitch, right? Start pitching instead of actually understanding the pain points of the customer and empathizing with those pain points of the customer. So, and we don't know. And I think these are for example, marketing doesn't naturally come to us. As a culture, we never marketed ourselves, right? As a country, we've never marketed ourselves. So we don't get it naturally. But I think we need to embrace the best practices around the world in terms of how do we create the world's greatest brands and the world's, how do you actually, what are the nuances in building those marketing ecosystems, product experience ecosystems? I think, and if we get that right, I think we have the opportunity. The next, Google or Apple or Facebook would come out of India.
Certainly, Shridhar. We are watching. We are rooting again the founders for that. And Ankita, I would like to end with you. How do you put it across the ecosystem, growing together through initiatives such as be it SaaS Club or RI's program? If you could, a little bit give a view on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's great to have such initiatives. I have discovered the power of community. I think it's something I discovered during COVID. But I think it's very important for any initiative to gain momentum and scale to put a focus on it, right? And like we were discussing in all the panels today, I think the great thing about the whole SaaS ecosystem, that now we are building for the world, right? And we only want to go bigger and better, and and just reach global heights. So I think for us to be, I think it's very well poised for you to start this SaaS club and really engage and capture the ecosystem, because I think the momentum for B2B SaaS is just amazing in India, right? And so even with what we're doing at StronHer Arise is building that momentum, that scale, bringing that community together, like we said, where we can have conversations, peer connects, and really just bring different stakeholders in the ecosystem together, right? To have those relevant connections and conversations and make that impact, right? So I think it's very important to bring that focus and just be able to create that layer of mentorship, knowledge, learning, sharing, etc. So I think, congratulations to you and SAP for doing this. And I just want to also point out that even one of my portfolio companies from my previous fund, Buying Ally, actually was with the SAP Success Factors, and that's how she actually got her first few big clients, and then of course got acquired by Phenom. But I think it's a great initiative which companies like SAP do, and I think Anand is also part of that. And so I think it's so important if stakeholders come together to really build something big.
Great. Thanks. Right. Even though it was virtual, I think the times have come back where we can meet in person and kind of converse face to face, right? And through this club, we are looking forward to conduct multiple activities across the ecosystem and across the landscape of India to focus on B2B and building for global. So with that, a lot of real insights for me, of course, right? Of course, we'll make the recording also available in social media in some time. And thanks for all your insights and inputs. It's a pleasure to have all of you today on the call.